Hey there, how you doing? How's your Nano going? It's been an interesting week for me over here for Nano. It's not going quite as well as I've been hoping, but it's still going. My initial goal was 5K per day, but instead I've been averaging more like 3K per day, which is still awesome and much better than my non-Nano norm, that's for sure. But I'm not quite where I've been hoping to be today. But at the same time, I'm reminding myself that I need to be kind to myself because this week has been really crazy, actually. I bet it has been for you too. For me, I had final edits on the sequel to Hollow Dolls that I had to get wrapped up. I'm also working on copy edits for the sequel to Twin Daggers, in addition to Nano. And then there's this whole like election thing in the US. Kind of losing our minds over this. It's been really hard to resist doom scrolling. In fact, it's been actually impossible to resist doom scrolling. So all in all, I am actually feeling pretty good about my progress this week, even though it wasn't quite where I'd envisioned. It's not, all things considered, I think I fared decently well. I hope you have had a decent writing week too. And if you haven't, be forgiving to yourself, especially for this past week. It's been difficult for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And then just try to do a little extra next week. That's what I'm gonna do. So there's plenty of time to still catch up, that's for sure. So, keeping it brief on this little intro today, and gonna go right to some Scrivener tips. Gonna tell you some things you can use in the inspector while you're drafting.
All right, so today I'm going to show you some fun things you can do in the inspector in Scrivener. Now the inspector is this little thing you toggle on and off here with the eye. It has all sorts of tools. We're not going to cover all of them today, but a couple of my favorites. First, I'm going to show you, we've kind of covered a bunch of these things here, the metadata, so I'm going to just kind of move that there. One thing you can do is you can add images to your inspector. You see here you have in the binder your little scrivenings, your text files, and normally you have your synopsis, you write some information in this part here in the note card. However, you can also add an image, and to do that, you go right here, click on this, and you can toggle from note card to image. Click on this, and all you need to do is drag and drop a file there. So I have one here on my desktop for this chapter. Might take a sec to pop up. There we go. So that's kind of one that kind of inspires, I feel like is inspiration for my main character. And so I can put that right there. So if I need that in my line of sight, I've got something right there to visually give me that sort of cue. You could also put those images in character sketches. So for that one, I probably could put that right here. Probably better to put that here and then make a little character profile for this girl rather, excuse me. And then maybe for this chapter, I'll actually change this. If you want to delete it, all you do is click the X here. It'll clear the image and put this fun little scenic one of a creepy little swamp instead, since they're going to have to go through a creepy little swamp in that chapter. So I have that there, and that's kind of a fun thing to do in drafting if you need that visual inspiration, or if you find that useful. That's a cool thing you can do, and you can easily toggle back and forth between the two of these as well. So that's a pretty fun thing you can do in the inspector. The second thing I'm going to show you today is one of my favorites, actually. I have a lot of favorite tools. I say that a lot. But this one really is great. It's called the Snapshots. If you go here, you can see a little camera icon here. And what this is really a lifesaver, I have to say. It's especially useful when you're revising, but it's also something that I use every single time I finish drafting a scrivening. I use this. What this does is it saves a copy of the scene you're writing, and then you can roll back to it if things go like awry, which we've all had that happen, right? You write something and then suddenly you accidentally delete like a whole page of text. You don't know what happened. You accidentally close something, so you can't undo, like the worst case scenario. If you've backed up each draft of this will preserve that for you. So I'm just going to throw some dummy text in here. Okay, so this is my chapter here. And to do the snapshot, you go to the camera icon here, and you click on the plus sign to take a snapshot of the scene. Does a little clicking sound there. It records the date and time, and the title you can change to whatever you want. So when I do this, I will normally number my drafts. So I'll say draft 1. I often have many of these. So anytime I do revisions or add in notes from my agent or my editor or critique partners, I will say something like, agent notes or CP notes or editor notes, notes 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on where I am. So I keep track of all those drafts so I can see the progress is how it's progressed. So the cool thing here, you see right here, here's a little preview of what is in this snapshot, which is very handy if you're just trying to look back and see what did you put in there where. That can be really helpful to look through them, especially if you have multiple ones. So for example, and fell on his face. So now this looks a little different. So if I were to take now I've got snapshot 2, draft 2. So now this looks still different. Sorry, I clicked in the wrong place there. So these two look different now. So now if I say, well, I don't like that, I want to just roll back and undo everything I just had to do, make sure you highlight the scene, the correct version, the correct snapshot, and click on roll back. And one thing that it does, it has this little feature of asking you to take a snapshot before you roll back. And that's always a good idea to say yes. I honestly can't think of a reason why you would say no. Because that way, in case you did this by accident or you realize, oh no, I should not have done that, you can then roll back to that other version as well. So I'm going to say yes. So now I got this third version here. I'm going to skip it back up right there. And now this is back to the original scene. But I still have this backup here of the other one and this one too. So this can be really helpful if you're trying to figure out, maybe things like, for example, sometimes I struggle with point of view and tense, figuring out exactly what's the right fit for the book. And so that can be tricky sometimes to figure that out. And this way I can try things out. I can write it in first person present, take a snapshot, revamp it as third person past, and then I can compare them and see, okay, which one do I think works better? But I can do that without having to lose my work. There's a copy bit here. If I decide I like the original one better, I can roll that right back easily. So that can be really handy, and it saves your butt when you're drafting. If for some reason Scrivener happens to unexpectedly close, or you're on a desktop computer and you have a power outage. If you have taken a snapshot, you are not going to lose your work. Definitely not going to lose your work. And Scrivener is already set up to save automatically. It showed you in an earlier feature review of the tools you can set it up to save every 2 seconds. However, there are occasions where software fails. I mean, that's a thing occasionally that happens. It's pretty rare. In my personal experience, it's been rare for Scrivener, but it can certainly happen. But if you have those backups, you at least have that work preserved. So highly recommend you back your stuff up. I always have multiple layers of backups. I have these, I have auto backups on Scrivener, and I save it in Dropbox, which backs up to the cloud as well. So multiple ways of backing up, just to be safe. I once had a horrid situation where I lost all of my work on a book, and never ever going through that again. Do not recommend. So that's my fun tip of the week. We'll be back next week with some more tips, some more fun things you can do while you're drafting. And yeah, happy writing. Hope you have a great Nano this week.